This is your Doc Farhan. The first thing I did in this video is what you can do in 8 hours to overcome your depression. I'm gonna convince you in this video how to overcome your depression in 8 hours by just sleeping. Tonight. That's it. That's what the video is about, and I get the fuck out of here. If you're still here, that means you wanna know why. You're interested in how you can sleep better to overcome your anxiety and depression. Right now, when you look at the people who have anxiety and depression, 70 to 80% of them report lack of sleep. Testosterone, this is the main topic of this channel, testosterone. It is produced during the REM cycle of sleep. So if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be able to produce testosterone. So this video is very, very important, not just for anxiety and depression and stress and fear, but also to increase your testosterone levels. Now, this is a Nature paper, okay, that I'm going to talk about today. It was published a few months ago, and it's Nature. Nature is the top journal that any scientist can ever publish in. I even tried to publish it there, and I couldn't. It's really hard. So this paper, this study is done really, really well. And the fMRI, that I'm going to tell you soon, the fMRI was done at the MNI, the Montreal Neurological Institute, where I got my PhD. I was so proud when I read that in this paper. So what did they fucking do? Okay, let's get started, and let me show you what's happening here. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is the paradigm, okay? What did they do in this study? They first did an evening anxiety measure, okay? Let me just adjust this a bit because you don't need to see the title. And then you can see my pretty face and my big biceps. Okay, now look. Evening anxiety measure at 8 p.m., okay? They did a test. They brought in a bunch of males, okay? This is a big study. It's a lot of people involved in this study. They did surveys. They brought people into the lab to interview them, and they had them sleep right then and there in the lab so they can monitor their brain activity. So in this paper, they also talk about the mechanisms, the neurological mechanisms, what is happening in the brain during stress. What is happening in the brain during sleep? If you don't sleep enough, what will happen in the brain? What will happen to the emotional centers of the brain, to the medial prefrontal cortex right here in the front of the brain? What's gonna happen to these brain regions? I'm gonna get into all of that in this video. So what did they do in this experiment? Imagine you go in to this place and they do a test. This is an anxiety measure. They give you a score of how much anxiety you have, right? They plan out this test. Then you either sleep, okay, you can see this? Yeah. You either sleep or you don't sleep. And then at 8 a.m. in the morning, they do a morning anxiety measure, and then they measure your brain signals using fMRI. That's basically it, okay? Now, what did they find? Okay, one thing I already told you is that anxiety disorders, 70 to 80% of people report lack of sleep in their anxiety disorders. Now, you may not be really aware of what anxiety disorders are, okay? Think of like social anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, panic anxiety, general anxiety. Did you know that anxiety is the #1 mental illness in the world right now? #1. It's more than Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. It's more than all of that. Anxiety. Now this is when it gets really sexy, okay? They looked at what brain areas are involved in all of this, okay? Now, the medial prefrontal cortex, which is located right here, it is in charge of regulating emotion. So they wanted to figure out, because in the past, what happened was the medial prefrontal activity was a little bit lower when there is stress. This has been found over and over. Now, what they wanted to see was, what is the connection of the medial prefrontal cortex with the amygdala, which are the limbic regions of the brain. The amygdala is where emotion happens in the brain. So they wanted to see what happens during anxiety to this area of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain, and the connectivity between them, right? Think about it. What is anxiety? It's emotion. It's you feeling fear. You feeling something that is perhaps it doesn't feel good. You kind of aren't in your moment. You're not at ease with yourself. There's some emotional torture going on. So that's where the amygdala comes in, and this is what they found out. When people are stressed, have anxiety, depression, and so on, fear and stress, their prefrontal cortex activity goes down. Okay, they actually measured brain signals to figure this out. It goes down. Now, that makes sense. Why? Because this area regulates emotion. So imagine all day you are stressed out. You have work, you have jobs, you have kids, you have school, you have all these things. And you have a lot of anxiety because of that. Well, this area of the brain would have regulated that anxiety during sleep, you getting the 8 hours of sleep. But it can't do that because the activity is lower because you're not sleeping enough. Now, then they looked at the connectivity between these two areas and they found it also decreased. So the connectivity is decreasing, which means that the regulation of emotion from this area, like if you have a lot of bad emotion during the day and you sleep, this area will regulate it and it will ameliorate, it will ease those emotions so you can not have anxiety during the day. But if the connectivity is fucked, then guess what? You will have those emotions during the day. You won't be able to work those out at night. Okay? So that's also something they found. So interesting. And the third thing is the activity in the amygdala actually goes up. So the emotional part of you, the fear, the stress, the negative emotion part of you actually increases if you don't get enough sleep. So that's something they found. So there is a deficit in emotional control. So guys, listen. Testosterone is very important, obviously, for all of us. We try to boost testosterone naturally all the time. But anxiety and stress will lower your testosterone because it will increase your cortisol levels. So it's very, very important for you to get the right sleep, right? This video is gonna motivate you to sleep 8 hours every night, sleep early, wake up early every night, sleep according to the circadian rhythm. Now, if you can't, if you're fully motivated, but if you have an issue with going to sleep, then there are other videos that I've already made on my YouTube channel about how to sleep better. So you can go check those out, and I will make more for you in the future. All right, next. The fucking mechanism is so sexy. Now, you know that REM sleep, right? These are the very fast wave sleep, right? Rapid eye movement, it's called. That's when testosterone is produced in the latex cells of the testes. It is REM sleep, your eyes are moving very fast, like, right? That part, okay, is right here. This part regulates very quick reactions to things that happen to us day to day. The REM part of sleep. So if you get enough REM sleep and someone triggers you during the day, then that quick reaction will be controlled. That quick anxiety will be controlled. However, the non-REM wave sleep is, again, it happens when you sleep. It's called the non-REM slow wave sleep because REM is fast wave. This is what controls the mood, the slow regulation of anxiety. You know how anxiety builds up slowly? This guy controls it. So they found that if you can have more non-REM slow wave activity during sleep, that will actually reduce your anxiety day to day. And they found that even a modest decrease, guys, a modest decrease. I'm not saying like a fucking, I don't know, you're sleeping like 4 or 5 hours a day. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying even a modest decrease in your sleep, just a little bit, can alter your anxiety levels the next day. And that little by little anxiety will one day lead to depression, will lead to illness, will lead to you being hospitalized, a lot of bad things. So start with 8 hours of sleep tonight. The last thing I'm going to talk about is HPA, hyperactivity. This is super interesting. So there's something called adrenal fatigue, and I'll be making more videos about adrenal fatigue in the future. So adjust my video here. Adrenal fatigue is a big epidemic. It's like having low testosterone is a big epidemic, right? So we kind of solved the low testosterone issue with Afro-D. Afro-D does that for many guys. Now it's time to tackle the adrenal fatigue, the sleep issues. Because if you're not sleeping enough, then what's the point of doing any herbs or any, diet or exercise if you're not sleeping, you're not recovering? you're gonna have high cortisol levels. It's just gonna be super fucked. So HPA hyperactivity here will happen if you don't get enough sleep. And HPA is hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and the adrenals, the adrenal cortex here, right? For testosterone, it was HPT, hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and testes. This is HPA, and this will hyperactivate, and that is when you get adrenal fatigue, because it's hyperactivated, it's activating too much, and then it gets exhausted, okay? So, in conclusion, more sleep every night to activate this guy, and then your medial prefrontal cortex activity will not be lower, it'll be higher or the same. This will not be lower, this will be higher or the same, okay? And even if you have very high emotions during the day, and that's okay, you just need sleep to battle it, to cancel it out, to compensate for it, all right? So that's it. Beautiful, beautiful paper. I encourage you to go read it. It's called Over Anxious and Underslept. Super sexy title. All right, guys, I'll see you next time for the next video. This is your Doc Farhan. Oh yeah. How you like me now?